This blind and honest wife was abused again. The villain broke into her house. They used force to silence her. Then forcibly took her into the room, waiting for her blind husband to come home. Only a thin blanket was covered on her body. Hands were tied, mouth was sealed. The husband immediately untied his wife's ropes. After what happened, Rohan warned the police. Unbelievable. This was just the beginning of the nightmare. Because the victim couldn't see. Suspect couldn't be indicated. Within 24 hours, they were required to do a medical examination. But on the way to the hospital, there was a car stopping them. Said to change cars. The results again brought the two to a warehouse. Rohan stood up to protest, but was knocked out immediately. Next, they were thrown onto a beach. It was very difficult for two blind people to find each other. Until they got to the hospital. The doctor said Supriya had been stained with water, the evidence washed away. Went to the police station. He said that after 24 hours, the suspect was released. Rohan disobeyed, argued with the police, but they were blind. Couldn't get any evidence out. After returning home, Rohan's attitude changed. Supriya prepared rice, Rohan didn't eat. Supriya said so then went rest, Rohan didn't listen. Supriya herself knew that Rohan disapproved of her body being unclean. She lowered herself, suggested a divorce. The next day, Rohan was still working as usual, but on his face he couldn't hide his grief. After going home, he decided to apologize to Supriya. Turned out, he didn't criticize Supriya at all. He hated himself for not being able to protect her. He entered the house while apologizing, but the house was too quiet. Just found and found. He felt a leg. He started to panic. The more he crawled up, the more despairing. Supriya couldn't stand the humiliation, so she hanged herself. Very quickly, a politician came to him. And his brother Amit was the one who raped his wife. At first he comforted like this. Then begged like this. Turned out the next day, Amit and his friend sneak into Rohan's house again. Then tied up Supriya to do a mess. This was the real cause of her suicide. Rohan was angry, went to the police station for help. But Shobi was bribed early, even said, if Supriya really committed suicide out of humiliation, why not kill herself from the first time? Went home. He discovered the Supriya's letter. On it was rewritten the entire process. After reading it, Rohan was deeply indignant. He was angry at himself for not being able to protect Supriya. Got more angry at this world of injustice and dishonesty. This time he decided to take revenge, not to hold back. Must deal with all the people who humiliated his wife. This was a very fierce blind man. Just heard the footsteps to know who was coming. Just listened to another voice once to imitate it. This time, he used his two forte. To make the bad guys harm Supriya had to take blood to return blood. He took turns recording the voice of the politician Madhavrao. Then ran to bar to record Amit's voice. Then learned to imitate these sounds. Next, he called the police. Used Madhavrao's voice to order the arrest of Wasim. As expected, the police didn't find anything unusual. Immediately ran to catch people. Then he disguised himself as Amit. Called Wasim's sister. Said he wanted to go to bed with her. Wasim's father standing beside him heard very angry. Immediately said he wanted to kill Amit. Very fast. Wasim's father reached out to Amit. Gave him a slap. Threatened him not to seduce his daughter anymore. Amit was bewildered. Was he crazy? Rohan continued to divide. He distinguished between Amit and Wasim's sister's voices. Made an appointment with the two of them to a meeting place. Then pretended to be Madhavrao again. Told Wasim's father the date of the date. Wasim and Amit's sister came to meet as scheduled. Wasim's father also ran over. Looking at the two people had problems. The father didn't talk much, stabbed Amit with a knife. Powerless, the powerful Amit countered. Two good friends were officially broken. This was just the beginning of Rohan's revenge. Rohan went to the supermarket, bought a lot of iron balls and potato snacks. Then again, Wasim went to the bar again. Wasim knew as he saw someone playing, but he had yet to do anything. Rohan had turned off all the lights in the bar. In the dark, Rohan was soon accustomed to this environment and easily found Wasim's location. Smash for a match. Also used the iron ball thrown at the opponent. Wasim began to suspect. He took out the flashlight. The ground was full of potato snacks. As he walked away, a potato snack would make a noise. Rohan relied on his sharp hearing to find him. Wasim learned it. He carefully stepped on the empty spaces. No more sound. Rohan did indeed stop attacking. Wasim found the switch, the light was on. His dominance was back. He smacked Rohan's head with a pot of wine. But now Rohan was furious. Based on the sound of broken wine bottles found him. Each punch came down. Next, he dragged Wasim over to the railing. Used a rope to tie it up. Pushed one. Just like that, he was hanged. Finally, Rohan threw a towel on Wasim's shoulder. The police arrived at the scene. Quickly noticed that handkerchief. Amit's name was written on the scarf. Of course Amit was suspected of being. The police wanted to arrest for questioning. But Madhavrao's brother wanted to touch easily. Madhavrao told police. In this city, he was the law. But everything was all in Rohan's plan. His revenge was still going on. The next one was Amit, Madhavrao's younger brother. Rohan appointed Amit to a warehouse. Hiding behind the door, preparing to sneak. As the door opened, Rohan slammed a stick. But cunning Amit was wearing a helmet. Should have resisted. Amit turned. He just knew the death of a good friend was done by Rohan. Rohan smacked another stick. This time, Amit dodged it very easily. Amit hit back, pinching Rohan's neck. Hit some more sticks. Rohan couldn't hear any sound. Was knocked out. but still not completely collapsed. He took his cane again, stood up again. Amit took off his shoes, prepared Rohan for a fatal stick. But Rohan forcefully turned around. Waited for Amit to wake up. He was tied to the ground by Rohan. It turned out that Amit accidentally took off his shoes. Just made Rohan know his location. Let him attack again. But Rohan didn't kill Amit right away, but called Madhavrao. The opponent heard his brother's cries for help. Ran to the warehouse. Then, Rohan left a candle at the door. Then broke all the gas tanks, causing it to run rampant in the warehouse. The last one was to gag Amit's mouth. Madhavrao ran to the warehouse. Seeing Amit in there, frantically banging on the door. In the end, Rohan also killed the two rapists Supriya. But he also hardly escaped the crime. After returning home, a young boy came to look for Rohan. He wanted to ask you to imitate the voice of the boy's father to leave. Rohan did that. But unexpectedly the police appeared. The secret that Rohan was able to imitate other people's voices was revealed. Shobi called on his subordinates to keep Rohan. Didn't let him out of the house. Next, he found the other two before he died. They both received phone called from the same address. This number came from a public booth. As long as the boss there realized that Rohan often called, basically it was possible to condemn him. But it was already dark that day. The next morning the new boss went to work. Here Shobi waited impatiently. On the other side, Rohan was preparing to kill. He asked his friends to distract the doorkeeper's attention. Then asked someone to spray smoke to disturb vision. Take a child by himself, ride a bicycle. Performed an escape scene under the eyes of the police. He contacted Madhavrao. Admit that he was the culprit that killed his brother. Madhavrao, who wanted revenge, was immediately trapped. Immediately ran to an old building with security. Take advantage of terrain. Rohan tricked Madhavrao's guard into falling into the trap. The vassals fell downstairs and died. Then he grabbed Madhavrao, based on the numbers he had already signed. Step by step dragged Madhavrao to danger. At that point, Rohan put on his seatbelt. Pushing the opponent, both of them jumped from the building. But he was restrained by his seatbelt. Finally, Rohan let go of his hand. Madhavrao had fallen dead. All the bad guys that insulted his wife were dead. But Rohan was also in danger. Because here, Shobi was waiting for the public phone booth to open. He wanted to ask the boss to appoint Rohan. But what surprised Shobi was that the boss was also a blind man. He couldn't recognize who came on the phone. Fate was ridiculous like that. The police once relied on the pretext that the two husbands Supriya were blind. Said they had no evidence, denied the facts. To this day, another blind man had also become the reason for Rohan to escape. At the end of the movie, Rohan brought Supriya's remains to the sea. For a moment, Supriya seemed to be beside him. The world of the blind was a dark, but in the heart there was love. That was the last ray of light.